What up, Cavs Nation? I'm your host, Ethan Sands, and I'm back with another episode of the White and Gold Talk podcast. And joining me on today's episode, Chris Fedor, Jimmy Watkins, you know him, you love him, and we're here to give you guys some bad news, give you guys some updates on the team, and I'm going to pick these guys' brains to see how they feel of the injuries that we're going to list are going to affect not just this series, but the remainder of the playoffs. Obviously, the Cavs had a couple of injuries that Kenny Atkinson brought up after practice today. DeAndre Hunter, questionable for game
Not a
2.
practice.
It was listed as a practice, but they didn't practice. It's weird. It's weird, right? Chris, would you like to break it down? I'll let you break it down.
I bet you people were practicing at shoot around. They were practicing their jump shots. They were practicing ball handling.
Yes. It was not an official practice.
Semantics. What's the theme of the podcast? Is it questionable?
Practice.
Is it doubtful? Is it shoot around? Is it practice? Who cares? Words. Just words.
It was a walkthrough. It was a treatment day. It was get what you want kind of day. It was not an official practice. So I just want for everybody out there that's like, oh my God, the Cavs lost to the Indiana Pacers and they felt like they needed to practice on an off day, a quote unquote off day, or in between games 1 and 2. That was not a practice. That was a walkthrough. That was a shoot around. That was a get what you need day. That was a treatment day. That was watching film, but it was not an official practice by NBA terms. Just so that we have that clear.
I'm trying to pull up the Cavs email as we're going through this to see what the official terming was when we were told to show up.
All right, so I'm going to give some more background here. I'm going to take people behind the curtain a little bit more. After games, there is a public relations staff of the Cavs, the communications staff, and they typically get together with me and some other beat reporters that have covered this team from day one this year. And they ask, hey, like, do you need availability? Based on what you already got here tonight, you know, you talk to Evan Mobley, you talk to Donovan Mitchell, you talk to this player, that player, Kenny Atkinson. Do you need availability tomorrow on the quote-unquote off day? Now, there are various points throughout the course of the regular season that I say no, because scheduling doesn't really work out, because I don't think there's anything new that's going to be gained by having that availability. I don't think there's anything new that's going to be said having that availability. Well, last night they came up to me and they asked me if I wanted availability, and I said yes. I said I don't want to speak on behalf of every single writer in this room, but yes, it would be beneficial for us to have availability, because there are going to be injury updates that we need, because there are going to be other things that we come up with that we want to ask after recalibrating, regathering, all of those kinds of things. So part of the reason why they had availability today is because it was requested. It was requested by the writers that cover this team. The other part of the reason why they had availability today is because the NBA is now cracking down on these teams during the playoffs, and they're trying not to allow them to get away with these things. Now, NBA teams are very, very smart, and how they phrase things can matter with what the league stipulates is an availability, is a practice, however you want to phrase it. But during the playoffs, because the NBA wants its product out there and they want it consumed by the media, and they want the media to be able to write about these guys and deliver information to the NBA fans, the NBA has cracked down on these teams trying to get away with not having media availability with their players. In fact, the Indiana Pacers were not supposed to have availability earlier today. They got yelled at by the NBA, and they added media availability at the last hour, basically. So, you know, the teams that were able to get away with this kind of stuff throughout the course of the regular season, it's not going to happen the same kind of way in the playoffs. But in saying all of that, so that we're accurate, it was not a practice.
Just so people, because I am a beat reporter on this beat. I'm not the biggest. Of course, Chris Fedor is the man, the myth, the legend. Everybody knows him, and he gets the inside scoop. But reading the Cavs media availability email from earlier today, so people don't think I just say things off the top of a whim. It says the Cleveland Cavaliers will have practice and hold media availability today, Monday, May 5th. So
Yeah.
Ethan,
all of our bases are covered.
Ethan hit Chris with the Kenny Atkinson challenge.
I got what everybody else was told. Chris got what actually happened behind the scenes. I think that's a great basis of how this podcast should work. All of our bases are covered. Let's leave it at that. The injury update, which is most
I can
importantly...
give you an opinion. This is stupid.
There you go.
Oh,
this is stupid.
Can I give you a tip, a life tip, Jimmy, as somebody who has been in the local media for 20 years now? 20. That's unbelievable. I am so gray. I am so old. You don't have to have an opinion on everything. And you don't have to share said opinion on everything, on every platform that you can find.
This is
You have an opinion on Taco Bell.
I knew that's what this was about. I knew that this was about.
Opinion on everything.
You leave a takesman to twiddle his thumbs for an hour before we start interviews. What am I to do except workshop some takes?
The other part of this podcast, which I think is a great element that Jimmy adds, is the takesmanship. Jimmy keeps it interesting because you never know what is going to come out of Jimmy's mouth, and that's important for people to listen to who are interested in getting their takes off, right? Again, I try to reconvene and circle us back to the point.
Nope.
The Cavs injury report was updated for Game 2, and there are 3 players that are questionable for the game against the Indiana Pacers. DeAndre Hunter, as Chris mentioned on yesterday's podcast, not only had to have his finger pop back, we now know it is the thumb on his shooting hand that was dislocated, and he'll have to be reevaluated. He'll try and go for Game 2. He told us after the game that he was going to try and play in Game 2. DeAndre, all of the nerves, all of the pain. I've dislocated a finger before. In the moment, you don't really notice it. The day after, you sure do. Next on the list for the injury update, Evan Mobley tweaked his ankle after coming down and landing on Miles Turner's foot. And he is questionable as well. And the one that we all knew coming into Game 2, Darius Garland, is still questionable with his toe injury, the great toe, the big toe that he's been dealing with, the sprain of that. Chris, which of these 3 injuries do you think has the most concern for not only this playoff series, but for the playoffs in general for the Cavs? Because we know how all 3 of these players are huge contributors for the Cavs.
There is not a very good feeling internally in the Cavs organization on Evan Mobley. From everything that I heard today, he was not able to put full weight on his ankle today when he was trying to go through his walkthrough, his shoot around, his workout stuff. He was not able to put full weight on it. What is it going to be like tomorrow when he wakes up? Is he going to be able to participate in shoot around? Don't know. But the day before Game 2, him not being able to put full weight on it, that is not a good sign. That is not promising when it comes to his availability for tomorrow night. DeAndre Hunter, from everything that I've been told, that I'm hearing, he had his thumb reset. It got popped back into place. That happened in the locker room when he exited quickly. So because it was popped back into place and it was reset, I think it's something that they're going to try and wrap up and see what he can do and what he can't do at shoot around. Ball handling, obviously, something to pay attention to. Banging it on one of these physical Indiana Pacers defenders, that's something to pay attention to. The touch around the rim, got to pay attention to that. How about those shooting mechanics from three-point range, from mid-range, where he likes to live? Got to pay attention to that. What does this feel like? What is his touch like? Is this something that he's going to be able to play through? The sense that I get is that he's going to try. And that was the indication that he gave, obviously, immediately following the game. And, look, I think this is the kind of injury where if you put a wrap on it, you feel pretty good about your chances of giving something to the team. The Darius situation remains perplexing to everybody involved, but the sense that I've gotten today, and we understand that these things are fluid, and the complication when it comes to Darius is that one day it's positive feedback, the next day it's negative feedback, then it's positive, then it's negative, and people are just trying to figure it out. They're trying to get the most accurate information. But it's a tricky injury, and it was always going to be a tricky injury, especially for a guy like him. But the sense that I get, Darius is going to try and give it a go. That's the feeling as of right now, that, they're down 1-0 in the series. There is a chance that Evan Mobley doesn't play Tuesday night. And Darius understands his importance and what he could provide to this team, potentially in the absence of Evan Mobley and with a limited DeAndre Hunter. And even if Darius is 70%, 80%, he feels like that can still be a valuable asset to this team in its current state. Nonetheless, as bad as, game one was from the Cavs' perspective, all of the feelings, the mood today made it feel like even worse. As bad as game one was, and they had to digest that loss and come up with solutions and look for explanations on why things went the way that they did. Today was a horrible day at Cleveland Clinic courts for this basketball team with all the news that they got.
The most concerning injury to me is Evan Mobley, because he's the guy that needs to push them over the top. That's what they've been saying. That's what we've been saying. Basically since he got here, since Donovan Mitchell got here, since Donovan Mitchell joined him. And because just the ankle injuries are so finicky, they can re-pop up at any time. And just think about the kind of things that Evan Mobley does 100 times a game, jumping for rebounds in crowded paint areas. A lot of opportunities to land on someone else's foot down there. If he plays, when he plays again, you don't think they're going to be testing him out as much as they possibly can on switches? Indiana's pulling him out. They're going to see Tyrese Haliburton is going to hit him with the crazy crossovers to see how well he changes directions on that ankle. That's just reality. He's the most important player to their defense. He's, particularly in this series, one of the most important pieces of their offense. So the fact that he's the one that we're having a grave conversation about right now, whew. Speaking of the never-ending takes that I give, made a YouTube short today coming out of practice. And it's just like, I walked out of there thinking, this is why you can't just write off a playoff game as, okay, they made shots we didn't. It'll be better. Like, no, you don't get to burn playoff games.
Yeah.
You can only lose 3 now. And because the Cavs didn't bring the defensive intensity last night, 1-0 either way, all of these injuries would be very concerning. But now you're down 1-0, and you might not have Evan. Kenny said after the game last night that you never want to... Teams don't take into account a series score into a guy's recovery plan. He was talking about Darius specifically. I guess, but it's human nature for a guy like Darius Garland to push a little harder to play when your team is down 1-0 and you might be down at least one other core piece. Yeah. I mean, we haven't even talked about Donovan Mitchell limping around late in the game. Like, this is dire straits, man. It's 1-0. A lot can happen. The Cavs could make a bunch of threes tomorrow. I mean, if Evan doesn't play, you're going to have to score 125 points, 130 points, it seems like, to win the game, or try to change your style drastically. But, like, I don't think it's crazy for them to be able to win a game if they get the right performances from the rest of their offense. It's just like there's a lot of storm brewing right now. And these things are going to linger, too. It's not just, hey, if we could just get through 1 or 2 more. We're in the second round now. You're playing basically every other day. You get extra rest day on the road. But, like, there's not going to be a ton of room for improvement here. Like, this stuff can get worse.
So I think that's a great point because of the severity of the situation. And Jimmy, you got into something that I was going to get into next, because the one player that's not on the injury report that might be the most dire, as you mentioned, is Donovan Mitchell because of his injury checkered past when it comes to the knee, ankle, calf. And Chris, I was going to ask you if you had any clarity on the injury, being the guy behind the scenes, the man in the chair, as people may say.
Nothing on it. Like, I've heard knee and calf combination type thing, but not something that the Cavs felt necessary, not something that Donovan felt necessary to put on the injury report.
What does necessary mean? Like, because he was certainly limping. What's the line between necessary and, I'm doing air quotes there for the people who aren't watching, and gamesmanship or protecting Donovan?
I don't think they feel like there's an injury to report. That's their right. If there's not an actual injury designation, they don't have to put an injury designation.
I'm still in the middle here on the gamesmanship part and the reporting part because, these teams, as Chris said, do get in trouble for doing things and not doing things. So I just think we saw it last year, right? Donovan's going to play unless it's going to be detrimental to next season. If he feels like he can will the Cavs to a win or help them get to the next series, especially because he hasn't gotten out of the Eastern Conference semifinals yet in his career, he's going to play. And I remember earlier this season, Kenny was like, there are a few guys on this team that when it comes time to rest or talk about taking time off or taking it easy, there's a few of these players that you really got to talk to. And obviously Max Strus is one of them, but Donovan Mitchell is also another one when it comes to playoff basketball. Not necessarily in the regular season because there was a plan set in place since the offseason that he had a conversation with in Los Angeles with Kenny Atkinson, and that's where all of this began. But it's difficult for me to see Donovan sitting out unless, there's no shot.
Look, I think the other thing is, and we see this all the time in sports, including in basketball, a guy can look less than 100% in a game to finish the game because he bangs knees or he lands awkwardly or it looks like something is bothering him throughout the course of whatever that game is. And then 2 days later, he's not on the injury report because it's not something that they feel is going to be a detriment to his play or is something that needs to be reported. I mean, that happens all the time. So the thing that I would say is, I don't know how Donovan's going to look in game 2. It's something that we're obviously going to monitor based on what we saw with our eyes in game 1. We'll find those answers out. But, just because he looked labored throughout the second half of a game, it doesn't mean that it's going to carry over 2 days later. We'll see. He wasn't getting treatment on it. His personal trainer, Murphy Grant, wasn't overly concerned. He didn't give him anything different than what he usually gets after games. It didn't look like he was limping around the locker room the way that Evan Mobley certainly was limping around the locker room and dragging his leg. So I think, Donovan has a big responsibility in this series moving forward. And I think it's just about him trying to be as effective as he can be and doing everything that he needs to do to prepare himself for this kind of expansive workload. But, shooting 30 shots probably isn't the formula for him or the formula for the Cavs. And that might have played into him looking worn down, him looking exhausted. They played the fastest team in the NBA. He took 30 shots. I probably would have looked pretty exhausted too. I mean, LeBron would have looked exhausted. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander probably would have looked exhausted at various points. But I think it's a positive sign from the Cavs' perspective that he isn't on the injury report.
So I want to just make this point because I think the most irritating point of yesterday's game for me wasn't that Donovan took 30 points, even though that was a jarring aspect of it, and I wrote about that. But the fact that, one, he was either laboring or injured or whatever you want to describe it as, he didn't get back on defense. He didn't do his part on that end of the floor for the second half of the game, right? There were multiple times where you saw him drive to the basket, either get hit, make it, or not make it, and walk his way to half court and then call for the ball again to go back on offense. I'm sorry. I don't care if you're the star player. I don't care if you're a guy off the street. I don't care if you are a fan or whatever. You cannot do that as the leader of your team. I would yell at you if you did that in a pickup run, because I feel like the whole point of what this team has done is you have to play your role, but you have to also help out in other areas that aren't necessarily your niche, right? And Donovan and Chris, you've talked about this a lot this season. Donovan's supposed to be this physical, spry, long defender that players don't attack. Well, you're not doing any good for your team if you're standing at half court and Tyrese, Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith are running by everybody else on your team. And this goes back to my point from the other night. Guys were legitimately looking around trying to figure out whose man it was. Sorry to tell you, and for most fans of this team, a lot of the time that man was Donovan Mitchell's because he was on the other side of the court. And this is not me berating Donovan for not having a good game, not doing as much as he could, not trying as hard, but like maybe you have to do a little give and take there, right? Like if you're taking 30 shots and that's the reason that you're not able to get back on defense, or you're tired, you're gassed, whatever it may be, maybe you got to give a little bit something else. And that's also a part of what Kenny Atkinson was saying with the ball was sticking too much. They didn't get into the flow of the offense that they're normally able to. And I think that was in large part because of the self-isolation, the isolation-centric offense that they were running. And again, that has a lot to do with the game style that Donovan Mitchell was playing in game one.
Did you guys see Top Gun Maverick?
Yes.
Okay, so you know that whole scene where, they're discussing the parameters of the mission. Like all I have thought for the last 48 hours or so is that the parameters of this mission for the Cavs on the defensive end of the floor call for something greater than what they've been demanded throughout the course of this season. And look, since January, the Cavs have been middle of the pack on the defensive end of the floor. That is not up to their standard. That is not up to the standard that they say that they want to play to. They talk about being a defense-first team. They talk about that being their identity. Well, middle of the pack over the course of a 3-4 month stretch is simply not good enough for a team that says it's defense first. OKC is defense first, all right? The Houston Rockets are defense first. There's nothing in the Cavs profile that says they are defense first. That's first and foremost. But they were able to get away with things throughout the course of the regular season. They were able to get away with things against the Miami Heat. Against Indiana, oh my. You have to be disciplined. You have to follow the game plan. Communication's got to be there. Physicality, focus, attention to detail. All of those things have to be at the highest possible level that you can take them from a defensive standpoint. And even Kenny Atkinson said it earlier today in his media availability. He said, our closeouts, our contests, they were below standard. And he's right. This whole thing about, Indiana shot over their heads. Yeah, they made some tough shots. There were certainly some that didn't make sense that they actually went in. But you know what? They did. And the other thing is, if you allow a team to get comfortable on the offensive end, those shots become a little bit easier. And some of those shots that they have no business making, those go in. So, yeah, we can sit here and we can say, well, the Cavs should have made more than what they did in game one, and they're a better shooting team than that. Yes. And you can say that, hey, maybe Indiana is going to regress a little bit when it comes to shooting the ball. But guess what? Indiana played better defense in game one. Top to bottom, beginning to end. So the Cavs were getting the tougher shots of the two teams. It's not a surprise to me, as much of a surprise to me, that the Cavs didn't shoot better than they did, because some of those shots were very, very difficult, because Indiana is programmed to stay at home on their shooters, whereas the Cavs, you know how many three-point attempts the Pacers took? It took 36, right? 19 were considered open looks by second spectrum. That's a lot, and that's not good enough from a defensive standpoint. So, if you want to sit there and say, well, I can't believe Indiana made so many threes. They don't shoot like that during the regular season. Well, the looks that they were getting, the open looks, were probably different than what they got over the course of the regular season. Some of those were just walk-up threes. Some of those were like eat a snack, drink some Gatorade, and then launch threes. So, like, if the Cavs don't play better defense, there's no reason to think that Indy's just going to start missing a whole bunch of shots. And there's one last point here, folks. There's one last point here. Indiana's one of the best offenses in the NBA. That's what they do. That's who they are. So you shouldn't be surprised that they make all these shots and they scored all these points, especially against a defense that simply was not good enough to playoff standards.
I know that the Indiana Pacers wouldn't tell you that they're a defense-first team, even though they play better defense than the Cavs. They know who they are. They know they're an offense-heavy team. They know they get up and down the floor. They know what they can do to be successful. Sure, they have the opportunity to take advantage of some defensive slippage or whatever, but they know that they're an offense-first team. I think it's notable that Kenny Atkinson has yet to make that adjustment for this Cavs team.
I mean, I would say that every coach will tell you that defense is the most important thing. I mean, and for the Pacers, by the way, for them to get out and run the way they do have to get stops. That's part of the equation here. So, I don't know. I will say this, though. It's long past time to stop pretending that the Cavs are a defense-first team anymore. Because Kenny did say a lot of things about closeouts, below our standards, aggression, force, physicality, this, that, and the third. You know what else he said? It really perked my ears up. Yeah, but our offense let us down. That's how he thinks, man. We see it with his lineup decisions. We see it with the way he's decided to play this year. Basically, one of the big things that happened when the Cavs hired Kenny Atkinson, replaced J.B. Bickerstaff with Kenny Atkinson, it was a pivot from defense-centric basketball to offense-centric basketball. Now, I don't think that that's the wrong conclusion, because while I think defense probably sets a high floor for a basketball team, your ceiling is dependent on your offense. To me, I think the reason why the people still have questions about the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have the best defense on the planet by several measures, probably a few other planets as well that we haven't found life on, we're just not sure.
I don't know, man. I think they play some defense there up on Venus.
Who knows? Who knows? It's a gas planet. I don't know what kind of ball they play up there. But Alex Caruso's not a great shooter. People don't trust Chet and J-Dub as secondary creators all the way. It's an offense question, right? Their defense is rock solid, but who knows? That's the question. Go for them going forward. The Cavs, by the way, there's credence to what Kenny's saying. If the Cavs play better off, I'm not saying this is the way you should be thinking about it after you got torched for 19 open three-pointers and over half the shots that the Cavs took, the Cavs allowed were uncontested. That's not good. We don't want that. But if you score more, you can set your defense easier, and the Pacers will just naturally, it is harder to play. Trust me, they'll take that ball out of the bottom of the net as fast as they possibly can and throw it as far up the court as they possibly can and get into a set at 21 on the clock, if possible. They're still going to try that. The Cavs will just be ready. But the other thing here, we heard a little bit of this in the Miami series. The one red flag that we raised during that series is during Game 2, that fourth quarter, the Cavs kind of looked shaky there before Donovan saved the day. There's a lot of talk after that game about offense affecting defense, and that's an emotional thing. But it's also, in this series, it is so literal. If you're missing shots, you don't have time. You don't have time to think about it, because the second that ball is off the rim, Indiana is sprinting the other directions. And you got to be, everything Chris said is true. You have to be disciplined. You have to be locked in. You also just have to run. You have to run be sprinting all the time. And you're going to get cross-matched, and you got to just let it happen. You can't be thinking, whoever's around you, stay attached to that person. Because if not, you're just going to get put in the blender, as Kenny said yesterday.
There's just a different level of pressure that Indiana puts on you for 48 minutes because of the way that they run their offense. And it's like the Cavs could guard for 20 straight seconds. But that one mistake, that one slip up, that one miscommunication, that one breakdown, that one overhelp, that one poor rotation, and all of a sudden it's an open three or it's a bucket. Jared Allen at times seemed like he was doing the right things against Tyrese Halliburton, and then he let him go right. It's like, no, you force him left. Everybody knows you force Tyrese Halliburton to go left. That's on the scouting report. They play the videos in the locker room before every single game, and that's one of the things that is pointed out every time Tyrese Halliburton comes up, because that's what you have to do. You have to try and force him left. But like Jarrett at times didn't look comfortable in that particular stance, so he changed it. And the minute that he changed it, Tyrese recognized it in a blink, and he blew right past him, and he got the layup, or he got that up and under thing, and he went 6 of 9 when guarded by Jarrett Allen in the game. Those are the kinds of things that Indiana will consistently make you pay for. Like, there's a reason why they were the best offense in the playoffs last year, all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. They were the best offense. And this year they had a top 10 offense. And coming into game 1, they had the second best offense in the playoffs. They played Brook Lopez out of the rotation. This is what makes them very, very difficult. It's the smallest mistake that you can make. And think about the mental toll of that. Think about the physical toll of that. The smallest mistake turns into maybe a bucket or an open three. And that's just, I don't know that the Cavs defense is sharp enough. I don't know that the Cavs defense is disciplined enough. And I don't know that they built the habits that were required to be a great group on defense against this caliber opponent.
I think the Cavs know that too. Like Ethan's been asking about overhelping the last couple of days. Guys helping off shooters. The idea the Cavs are trying to execute by switching a ton against the Pacers is that, look, we're not going to have an awesome matchup all the time, but if we allow 2 points instead of 3 points, which is what happens if we try to put our defense in rotation all the time, we get confused and they're moving 100 miles an hour and we lose track of guys, then they'll bury us with the threes. So they're trying to trade threes for twos, but it's hard to do that if the guys who are supposed to be staying home on the perimeter don't trust the other guys to stay in front of the ball. That's why this is happening. That's why this is happening.
I'm going to bring it back to pick up basketball, because I feel like people who are listening to this are like, they're talking about the NBA. I can't see it. I've gone to so many runs where there's been like one defender who thinks he's the best defender on the floor, and he'll chase whoever has the ball around the court. He'll chase the person who has the ball for wherever the ball gets passed to. And I'm like, dude, you're messing up the entire defense because you keep chasing, you keep moving, you keep getting in people's way, quite honestly. And
yeah, this ain't a boxing one, bro.
This ain't a boxing one. And so that's what I'm saying when it comes to the defensive rotations of the Cavs are not, as Chris has been saying, they're not crisp enough. They're not as disciplined. And when we talk about how the physicality adds into that, like, you're not only trying to run around and keep up with them, but you're getting hit while it's happening. You're getting screened. You're getting pushed out of the way. And as we've seen with the Pacers team, they're not afraid, as Jarrett Allen said, to put an elbow into you, to put 2 hands on you, to make you feel them as they're trying to run up and down the floor. And when it comes to this Cavs team, and I want to ask this before we get into the whole physicality thing, because I think that's the next layer of this, and we still have a couple more things to talk about. Sorry, guys, it's going to be a long one. But
I love Jimmy's takes.
What say you of this series now that we have seen it? And on top of that, we have seen the injuries that the Cavs are going to have to be dealing with. And to me, even if Darius Garland comes back, and I think it's going to be crucial that he does, even if he's not at 100%, and even if that means that they're going to attack him, for me, it's the discipline and maturity thing that we've talked about that I'm most worried about. Because if he doesn't get a call, you can't throw your hands up and try and discuss with the ref as you're running down the court. Sorry, Tyrese is probably already in front of you. Andrew Nembhard's probably already in front of you, right? So I just think the discipline, the maturity, the focus of this team is not all the way locked in, especially on the defensive end. But how does that get impacted when you get the guy back, potentially, that your head coach is asking to be more mature against Miami? What do you say about this series now and how the injuries and what we've seen is going to impact how it ends up.
Once again, to quote the great Maverick, the parameters of this mission call for something different. And look, I know there's a lot in the Cavs profile that points to them being a legitimate championship contending team. They are a great basketball team. We have seen that throughout the course of this year. It is not a fluke. Their offense is really, really good. They have a bunch of different ways that they can attack a defense on the offensive end. I think Kenny Atkinson said it really, really well earlier today. The team that we watched in Game 1 against the Pacers, the collective we watched in Game 1 against the Pacers, that was not the team that we saw throughout the course of the year. That team was unrecognizable. The things that they were doing on offense were perplexing. The things that they were doing on defense, that was perplexing too. But this was always going to be a difficult matchup for the Cavs. It was always going to force them into uncomfortable decisions. It was always going to force them to play at a level that they hadn't shown consistently over the last couple of months. There was always going to be an experience edge on the side of the Pacers. And there were a lot of things that even internally that coaches, players, executives in this organization, like they had been watching the Pacers for months, saying to themselves, "Hoo boy, can we get them out of that 4-5 spot? Please? Maybe? Possibly? Milwaukee? Can you do something? New York? Can you not fall to the 6th spot? Like, could you stay there? 4-5?" Because I think they understood the reality of playing against the Pacers and some of the matchup problems and their ability to dictate pace and tempo and control terms of engagement and all those different things. So it was going to take a lot for the Cavs to win this series from the very beginning. Now you're talking about a less than 100% Evan Mobley, who may not play in Game 2. A less than 100% DeAndre Hunter, who may not have the same feel and touch. And a clearly less than 100% Darius Garland for whenever he gets there on the floor. It's fair to wonder if they have enough. It's fair to wonder if they're just going to lose the battle of attrition combined with seeing a team that is a pretty difficult matchup for them. All I will say is I still have a level of belief in the Cavs. I think they have reasons to be confident. I think some of the errors that they showed in Game 1 are correctable. But there is a legitimate pathway to them losing this series. That is the way that I feel right now. There is a legitimate pathway for them to lose this series. And there should be a relatively uncomfortable feeling about that, given everything that they expected from themselves and the standard that they set for themselves.
The Game 1 was the first time that they had felt uncomfortable, like real discomfort, frankly, in quite some time, because the end of the regular season slide just didn't mean anything. And they responded terribly. They got away from basically everything they do. This whole season has been defined. Donovan Mitchell's Teammate of the Year award candidacy is based around the fact that he's giving up control of the offense, empowering other players. And again, I understand that Darius Garland wasn't playing in this game, but it does seem like something of an overcorrection for okay, now I'm just going to go hero ball.
Donovan prides himself on being a historian and studying everything. Like, he was ready for that line about, hey, you passed MJ with 30-point games in the first round of a series. Like, he had looked that up to see what the result of that was for MJ. Donovan is either 1-5 or 1-6 throughout the course of his playoff life when taking 30 or more shots in a game.
Go look that one up instead of the Jordan box scores. We get to the post game. It's been one game. And I think Kenny's just spitballing up there sometimes. I do think he's more honest than most. More honest than he needs to be, frankly. I appreciate it. I appreciate them letting us in. But he, after one game, again, Ethan asking him, I think it might have been to Ethan's question about overhelping. And he just goes, yeah, it might be a stay-at-home series. Meaning we're not helping off some of these shooters. That's asking a lot, and that would be a pretty drastic philosophical change from what the Cavs defense is built around funneling shots to the rim. To Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Obviously, again, injuries could complicate this. If Evan Mobley's not out there or if he's limited, different ball game. but one game in, like the Pacers shattered their identity in that game. One game, but they didn't handle it well. And now it's getting worse. Now Evan Mobley might not play. Now who knows what DeAndre Hunter's shooting hand looks like? Who knows what Darius, like, we saw different injuries, different circumstances. Darius did not play well through injury in the playoffs last year. He's much more well equipped physically, but he's going to be, like, forget all that. Rhythm-wise, this guy hasn't played in, like, almost 2 weeks. I think he'd give you a boost. I think he can help organize your offense. He ain't saving you. So based off what I saw from game one alone, the Pacers put you in adverse situations. You did have a nice response in the third quarter, Cavalanche. Tyrese Halliburton called it a Cavalanche. He was right, 24 run. But then when the Pacers punched back, I didn't like how they responded to adverse situations that first game. Now they're in a way more adverse situation. I mean, like, I'm watching the start of tomorrow's game really closely because I think it's really important that they build confidence early.
Speaking of start of tomorrow's game, let's say DeAndre Hunter gives it a go, right? Let's say Evan Mobley doesn't. Let's say Darius Garland's back. Who's starting? And where do you guys see this Cavs rotation going? Because we've seen Kenny Atkinson try and throw in Isaac and Dean and Sam and all these different guys into the starting lineup. Really haven't seen DeAndre all that much, especially not when Evan Mobley's the man that's not there, right? So I think it's an interesting question because we've talked about how the defense needs to be better. And again, I throw the pitch that even though Isaac Okoro's offense has been extremely questionable.
Stop. No.
Okay. Give me a reason why.
What is the argument for playing him or starting him?
Giving him the opportunity to slow down the Pacers' offense.
He can't do that by himself.
No, but if he cuts off their water, if he turns their water off, which is Tyrese Halliburton, and if he's able to stay in front of him, right, and cutting off the passing lanes in transition, because he's not focused on his offensive side, I think that's an opportunity for him to show himself on that end of the floor. I'm not saying that he's going to save them. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying if I'm Kenny Atkinson and you're so used to using this bench lineup of Ty Jerome and DeAndre Hunter and whoever else may be on the bench tomorrow, depending on who plays and who doesn't, I think that's the most viable option outside of putting DeAndre Hunter, who isn't going to be 100%, in the starting lineup.
The answer is Dean Wade. The answer is right in front of you. It's what they did at various points throughout the course of this year. He was very effective in the starting lineup. They were a very successful team with him in the starting lineup. Now, those games were scattered across the NBA, and they weren't specific to this one matchup against Indiana, but I think we all admitted following game one that this is more of a Dean Wade series anyway, because the type of player he is, the style that fits this series, that's what the Cavs need in this kind of series. He has the speed to get out to the perimeter. He has the strength and the size to match up with some of these other guys. Like, I understand the theory behind Isaac. I do. But all they're going to do is put him in one action and get him off Tyrese Halliburton. Just like that. Because they're switching. Because they're committed to switching. Because Kenny Atkinson believes in switching. They have become one of the switch-heaviest teams in the NBA. So all they have to do is just one action. And then Isaac Okoro's not on Tyrese Halliburton anymore. Or they just run their offense through Andrew Nembhard. It's not the same as Tyrese Halliburton, but he's a very competent shot creator and a very competent playmaker. And he certainly played a huge role in Indiana getting to the Eastern Conference Finals last year when Tyrese was dealing with a hamstring injury. So I just don't see enough value in going to Isaac. I think it would be Dean Wade. The other thing here is, if Evan Mobley is healthy 100% or not, I just don't think the Jared Allen, Evan Mobley thing is viable. Of all the two-man lineups that played in game one against the Pacers, statistically the worst two-man lineup was Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Now, that's not a surprise. Guys, we talked about that going into this series. But they had an offensive rating with those two guys on the floor. They had an offensive rating of 100. Like, that is Miami Heat, Orlando Magic level bad. And their defensive rating was 150. 150. Like, that's supposed to be the beauty of Jared Allen and Evan Mobley together, is what you gain on the defensive end of the floor. But in this matchup, you're just not gaining enough with those two guys. To be outscored by 50 points per 100 possessions with those two guys on the floor together in 18 minutes. In 18 minutes. The worst two-man lineup that they had. So, like, I think Kenny was going to have to consider going away from the too big look to begin with. And this could potentially force him down that road. And I think it's more Dean Wade. It's more DeAndre Hunter. But I understand that Kenny likes to bring DeAndre off the bench alongside Ty Jerome. And he feels like if Darius is able to give it a go, there's enough playmaking, there's enough shot creation, there might be enough scoring that it may make more sense to bring DeAndre off the bench away from the ball-dominant guards and just have a low-usage, gap filler like Dean Wade in that starting group.
So it should be noted also that the two best plus-minuses on the team in Game 1, one game plus-minus samples, super noisy, but Ty Jerome and DeAndre Hunter. For as many forced floaters as Ty Jerome threw up there, he was plus 10.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hunter, dealing with the hand injury, plus 7. Like the Cavs bench was making up ground at times in this game. So that's just to balance the scale here a little bit. I'm team start DeAndre Hunter because when you got like Chris said, you're putting the two bigs out there to play defense. But if you can't score, then that's just two bigger, slower dudes that the Pacers can outrun in transition. Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, both for big men, move very well. Jared Allen runs the floor as well as any big men in this league. Evan Mobley is very fleet of foot. The Pacers are just smaller and quicker and faster. And if you're not scoring, like those two, and by the way, not only are you not scoring, Kenny again today comes in and says he's imploring them. You got to kill the offensive rebounds.
Yeah.
Well, you better get them because otherwise it's 5-on-4 at best. It's 5-on-4 at best. God forbid Donovan or someone is driving hard to the basket and gets knocked into the stanchion. Now it's 5-on-3. Now it's 5. This is like, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. I also have a question about if Evan doesn't play tomorrow, who's playing backup 5? It's going to be a small ball look, I would assume.
DeAndre?
DeAndre? That'd be a lot of Dean. So we could be starting Dean. He could be playing backup 5. Dean Wade Island. Buckets of water being transported.
That's another reason why I would say you would have to limit Dean's minutes if you know you're going to use him as a backup 5, right? Because Jared Allen can't play 48 minutes. He's not going to, right? We know this.
Tyrese Haliburton wouldn't mind Jared Allen playing 48 minutes, I don't think.
Sure wouldn't mind that, Jimmy. He played 30 minutes the other night, right? My thing is, and I completely understand the DeAndre Hunter, Dean Wade argument, and it's very valid. My thing is, Dean Wade and Isaac Okoro played almost the same amount of minutes in Game 1. Isaac Okoro, 15 minutes. Dean Wade, 16 minutes. When you look at the matchup data, which we know is finicky on NBA.com, in the first game, Game 1 against the Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference semifinals, Benedict Mathurin had 5 points on Dean Wade on 2 of 4 shooting, 1 of 1 from beyond the arc. Pascal Siakam had 5 points, 2 of 3 from the field, 66.7%. TJ McConnell had 2 points. Andrew Nembhard had 3 points. All of these players shot 50% or better against Dean Wade. Then, in the 15 minutes that Isaac Okoro was on the floor, nobody that he was guarding scored. Nobody. According to NBA.com matchup data. It's finicky, but I think it's something to keep an eye on. And
they don't guard him. They don't guard him. They ignore him completely when he's on the offensive end of the floor. The floor is congested with him out there. It has been for 5 years. It hasn't changed.
You could say, get his mind off of the offensive struggles. I'd say 1, maybe 2 wide open 3-pointers that he clanks. Now he's thinking about it. It's inevitable because Kenny and you have no choice but to yell at him to shoot these because it's the only way that he will be viable in the series. Yes, you could try to screen with him as much as you can. The Pacers are calling that a win if you're screening with a smaller guy who's not as experienced as a short roller, a playmaker in those situations. But you could try. You're involving him. You're making them account for him. I get it. He had a nice offensive rebound the last game. I'm trying here. I'm trying. He's just doesn't. He's in a bad place. It's beyond he doesn't make shots. I just don't think he's got a ton of confidence right now.
I don't disagree with that. And again, this is just pitching ideas, trying to see what sticks, what will happen, what won't happen. I think the Cavs are trying to figure out what's going to work after game 1, where not a whole lot went right, especially on the defensive end. The other portion that everybody has been talking about since after game 1 happened is the physicality aspect of it, right? And this dates back to the New York Knicks series, and I know fans are going to be like, why do we keep bringing up this series? It was 2 years ago. Well, here we are again, where not only did Kenny Atkinson say physicality about 6 different times in his press conference today, Sam Merrill said it, Jared Allen said it, Donovan Mitchell said it, Evan Mobley said it. Physicality is where they lost game 1. That's what they believe, right? They didn't match the intensity, they didn't match the physicality on their home floor. It's getting to be concerning that we keep coming back to this conversation, especially against a Pacers team that's not necessarily known for their physicality. They're long, they're lengthy, they can get up the court, down the court, whatever you want to call it. What do you guys think about how the Cavs responded to the physicality of the playoffs? And is that alarming to you?
No, because it's a different kind of physicality. It's a different tone of it all. This isn't a situation where they're just getting bullied around the rim, under the basket, have no chance to get defensive rebounds because Mitchell Robinson is just shoving them into the first row, or Julius Randle is using his beef to shove them out of the paint. The physicality that they were talking about is they just didn't make Indy's offense uncomfortable. They didn't make Indy's offense feel them. They didn't fight through screens the way that they needed to. They didn't set screens hard enough the way that they needed to on the offensive end of the floor. They didn't grab and hold Indiana off the ball and stuff like that. They were just able to freely roam around the court and get to their spots. Now, part of that is because of the pace that they played at, right? The Cavs were on their heels. They were caught off guard by it, and they just were out of position the whole time. And if you're trying to be physical with them and you're not in the proper position, you're not going to put a hand on them. You're not going to touch them. So I think there are levels to physicality. I think there are different definitions of physicality. I think it shows itself in different kind of ways. And to me, the tenor of those comments was very, very different than 2 years ago against the Knicks. The rebounding edge was even. I believe the Cavs throttled them in terms of second chance points, if I have it correct. That's not a surprise because Indy just doesn't even bother with offensive rebounds. They're programmed just to get back on defense.
21 to 4 second chance points.
Yeah. So they crushed them there. I think it was just make Indy's offense a little bit more uncomfortable. Make Indy's offense feel you a little bit more. And I think those things are correctable. And it was one game, right? It wasn't an entire series where they were just punked by one team that was clearly burlier than them, more physical than them, tougher than them. I will also say that I think the Cavs were pointing more to Aaron Nesmith, Andrew Nembhard, Ben Shepherd, TJ McConnell than they were, Miles Turner and Pascal Siakam and some of the guys on the inside.
But that's a real thing too. Aaron Nesmith, Andrew Nembhard, big dudes.
Point of attack defense, yeah.
Yeah. big dudes. And I mean, Donovan can hang with those guys, but Darius coming back, which we all view as a good thing. Sorry, Kyle Anderson. How's he going to handle that?
Yeah, right.
How's he going to handle Andrew Nembhard or Aaron Nesmith? Now, it's good. It's a good thing that the Pacers have to make a decision about where they want to put Nembhard/Nesmith. I would guess they put Nembhard on Darius and Nesmith on Donovan, just size-wise. I don't know. Although Nembhard did a good job on Donovan, so maybe you let Nesmith.
No. He did a great job.
Yeah, right.
Like, his screen navigation was incredible. Yeah. He had Donovan looking uncomfortable for sure.
Right. So maybe you just leave that as is and put an even bigger guy on Darius. Quickness, who knows? Who knows how, again, with the toe, who knows what he's going to look like.
Put Halliburton on him, thinking that Darius is 70%. You might be able to get away with it.
Oh, man. It's possible. It's possible. I just want to also make the point that it's a lot for Darius to be getting thrown back into right now. There's a lot emotionally. Yeah. It's going to be tense in there tomorrow. If this game is any kind of close, it's going to get tense. And it's going to be Nembhard and Nesmith are going to be banging with him and messing with him. Someone might, I would put a lot of money on someone accidentally, quote unquote, stepping on Darius's foot tomorrow. That's playoff hoops, man. It happens. It happens. And if Evan's out there, they're going to put him on an island and make him change directions. That's how it goes. If you're out there, you're fair game, and the Pacers are going after you. It's a lot. It's a lot for Darius to be coming back to.
All right, time for our last section of the podcast, Celtics Corner. And on today's episode,
Bing Bong.
Oh, Jesus. The New York Knicks hand the Boston Celtics a loss in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference semifinals, 108-105 in an overtime contest. Chris, I know you love watching hoops. You were watching baseball and basketball before the podcast. What did you think of this one? And especially for me, Jason Tatum in the fourth quarter and overtime, 4 points, 1 of 9 from the field, 0 of 5 from deep. When they needed him, he was not there.
I just think the big thing was, given everything that happened throughout the course of the game, as it was unfolding, Porzingis in the back with an illness, Jason Tatum just on a different planet, taking terrible shots, missing a whole bunch of threes, sabotaging the offense. Sam Hauser with the worst closeout that I've seen in the NBA so far this year, and then injuring himself on it. Like, as this game was unfolding, you started to think to yourself, this needs to be a game that New York gets. This is an opportunity for New York to get one. And they got it. Now, I don't know how much of that is going to carry over to Game 2. I don't know how much of that is going to be duplicated. I don't know if they found like a specific formula that is going to lead them to 4 wins and 7 tries over the Boston Celtics, the reigning NBA champions. But given everything, this was a game that they needed to get, and they got it. And I thought they showed a lot. And if games are close in the fourth quarter, we have seen it over and over and over again. That is not the comfort zone of the Boston Celtics, and it is very much the comfort zone of the New York Knicks, because Jalen Brunson is a dude. He is a killer, and he loves those moments, and he was clutch player of the year for a reason. I think Reggie Miller reached his quota on the term clutch about 30 seconds into the broadcast, and then used it about 200 more times to describe Jalen Brunson. But that is a comfort area for New York that is uncomfortable for Boston. So if it's close and it's in a late game situation, boy, it gets nervy for the Celtics. And if the Knicks can find a way to get it close going into the fourth quarter like they did, there's at least a pathway to being competitive. I don't think they're going to win the series. I would not be surprised if Boston just ripped off 4 in a row here. Maybe 4 of the next 5, if you want to give New York one at home, because that is going to be a raucous environment at MSG. But I just didn't see a ton from the Knicks that made me feel like okay, like Boston should be on upset watch here for this series. But big, big, big game one win, and they deserve a lot of credit for the way that they came back from 20 down.
I love Reggie because he's his passion for the game bleeds through in every broadcast. He's just so fired up to be at these playoff games, But yeah, a walking thesaurus, he is not. I'll say that. To me, this is the Celtics piss me off, man. They just piss me off. Like, what do we want out of our great teams? We want killer instinct. We want discipline. We want focus. We want, like, you're up 20. You're not shooting well. But that's what you want. Celtics not shooting well and being up 20, that's what you want out of a great team. Finding a way to flex your other muscles. But they just do this. They just do this, man. They hit these lulls. It's like they're like the Celtics are the freaking ADHD team in the NBA. They can't maintain the focus. They do this all the time. They just start throwing up jumpers. Yeah, we're up. Even if we lose the lead, we'll figure it out. And then, you know what? Most of the time they're right. They weren't tonight. But I like Chris, I'm not super concerned about them in this series. It's just, I think that if we're taking breadcrumbs for the future here, if the Cavs can get out of this early mess that they're in, I would say never give up against that team. The Cavs know that. They've already come back. Those guys will let you back in if you give them a chance. And if you can out hustle them. You can, like, the Celtics, let's be honest, the Celtics beat the smut out of the Knicks basically all 4 times they played each other in the regular season. They walked into that building tonight being like, we got this. In the third quarter, they're probably thinking about what club they're going out to after the game or where they're going for dinner. And look what happens. They're just, this is, they're the best team in the NBA. I think they're the best team in the NBA at their peak by a sizable gap. But this stuff, I really don't like. And this is what can stop them from winning a championship or have them losing a dumb series that they shouldn't.
I get so surprised sometimes when I check in on the Boston Celtics, and it's like, well, how do you keep doing this? How do you keep doing this to yourself? Right? And it's a question that you don't necessarily pose for the greatest teams, right? Like, if this Celtics team wants to be recognized in those groups. Like, they feel like they're going to walk their way to another championship, and then they're considered a dynasty. I don't know if we're there yet, even after a second championship, just because of how they play, right? Like, maybe that's why Jason Tatum doesn't get the respect that he might want, right? Because he does things like this in fourth and overtime periods where you would want your star player to rise to the occasion, like Jalen Brunson, but then he doesn't. And sometimes he just deteriorates right before your eyes. And then you're like, as Chris said, hijacking offensive possessions instead of, I don't know, giving it to the finals MVP in Jaylen Brown. I don't know. A lot of options. But
you remember when
does it matter how if you win a championship though?
No.
Yeah.
Do you remember how the Cavs used to flip the playoff switch?
Oh, yeah.
They would walk, 2-2 in Toronto. They'd go back, beat the smack out of them in the next 2 games.
Yeah.
What I used to always think, like, are the Cavs flipping a switch or is LeBron flipping a switch? You know what I mean? Because everything they did was so revolved around him so much anyways. And he sets such a tone out there that it's like, if he starts going, everyone else is like, oh crap, we better. Yeah. That's the missing piece for me with Jason Tatum and the Celtics. We talked about this earlier in the year. The Cavs can say all they want, and by the way, we got way bigger problems than Boston right now, but more immediate problems, I should say. Probably smaller problems, but more immediate problems. They said all year, oh, Boston will figure it out. Like, don't buy whatever regular season dips they have. I just don't. I think it's human nature that you are not as hungry the second time around to win a championship, and I think the Cavs at full strength can have a serious advantage over Boston in that they're just so desperate to win. Whereas Boston kind of just, they did it, and now they assume it's going to happen again. I think that matters. I really do.
I mean, the 73-win Golden State Warriors lost in the first round, one game, to Houston. They lost one game in the second round to Portland, of all teams. They got taken to 7 by Oklahoma City, if you remember that. So, like, these things happen. I think there is human nature when you are a great team to kind of let your guard down and lose your focus. And I think, especially when you're the reigning champions and you don't have, that carrot dangling in front of you. So, yeah, I mean, I think there is some truth to whoever it is that gets to see Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals, if Boston gets there, and I do expect them to get there. Whether it's Indy, whether it's Cleveland, like, the hunger advantage is going to be on the other side. The question is, like, how much is that going to matter over the course of a 7-game series?
Last question from me for the podcast, and it's based on what Jimmy was saying about the hustle element. Do you guys think that the Pacers' style of play would pose more problems if they play to the Game 1 standard that they set for themselves against Boston? Or do you think the Cavs' overall game from the entirety of the series, or the season, gives Boston a bigger or more run for their money? Where are you going with that?
I think Boston people would be more fearful of Indiana. I truly believe that. And I think, like, there's just a part of the Cavs' reputation where people are like, prove it. Great regular season. 64-18, historic offense. Show me in the playoffs. I don't believe in you when it comes to a playoff environment. Indy's different. For everything that you want to say about the injuries that they took advantage of, the road that they had to the conference finals last year. They went to the conference finals last year. And by the way, in that series against Boston, the Boston Celtics, the team that went on to win the championship, 3 of those 4 games were decided by 6 points or less. One of those games went to overtime. So, like, that was probably the toughest series that Boston played, even though it was a sweep. Because, like, every single one of those games was competitive. And Indy showed a lot in that series against the Celtics. So I honestly think Boston people would prefer the Cavs win this series. Now, there's always the be careful what you wish for, because if the Cavs get out of the second round, the confidence boost that they're going to get from that, the feeling that they're going to have of being able to actually compete with the Celtics, and the way that, they've constructed this roster and the enhancements that they've made to this roster. And if Evan Mobley, like, heals up and Darius Garland heals up and, like, all those different factors, be careful what you wish for. But I think people in Boston feel like Indy's more of a threat because they have seen them be successful on the playoff stage in a way that they haven't seen from these Cavs.
I hear that. I just think that Boston is built to do exactly what the Cavs are trying to do to Indy's offense, but with personnel. Like, Boston is built to switch. Their offense is good enough to slow Indy down. Their guards are physical enough to make Indy feel them, like the Cavs are trying to do. There's just way fewer weak points when their best lineups are on the floor. There are no weak points to attack in that defense. And Boston is the best thing about Boston, Indiana, and the Cavs are how many guys that they all have that can pass, dribble, and shoot. And Boston just has the highest caliber of those guys. So I probably agree with what Chris is saying. The Cavs still have a barrier of proof that they need to clear before they start scaring Boston. I still personally believe if they can get out of this and they're relatively healthy, I don't even know what that looks like, because if Evan Mobley's already got a turned ankle, and at this point I'm thinking it would be a long series if they're going to win it, and Darius Garland's toe, all that stuff, I don't know what it would look like. But if you're relatively healthy, Cavs have the firepower to, in theory, hang with Boston.
Alrighty. And with all that being said, that'll wrap up today's episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. But remember to become a Cavs insider and interact with Chris, me, and Jimmy by subscribing to Subtext. This is where you can send in your weekly Hey Chris questions, and we'll get to that episode later this week after Game 2. But to get all the insider information during Game 2 and get all the information about the Cavs and the health of them before Game 2, this is where you can get that information too. So sign up for a 14-day free trial or visit cleveland.com/Cavs and click on the blue bar at the top of the page. If you don't like it, that's fine. All you have to do is text the word STOP. It's easy, but we can tell you that the people who sign up stick around because this is the best way to get insider coverage of the Cavs from me, Chris, and Jimmy. This isn't just our podcast, it's your podcast. And the only way to have your voice heard is through Subtext. Y'all be safe. We out.